All right, thank you everybody for your patience. We just wanted to give everybody an opportunity to get in and to get settled. So first of all, welcome, 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 and thank you so much for being a part of this wonderful celebration, Women's History Month. I got any excited ladies in the house? Woo! Yeah. So this is the end of the month. However, we are still excited. We are still pumped up. We have some wonderful events that are still going to be happening for the rest of this week. Just to go over them really quickly. So today, of course, we're doing our healthcare, but tomorrow, for those of you, and thank you so much for those of us who are joining us via interactive live stream. Shout out to Chris Roddenberry for making that happen. But tomorrow, we're going to have the Women Who Lead. You might have seen this flyer all around campuses, in your email. Please join us tomorrow at the Southern Campus from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. There's still time to register on the Eventbrite link. We have some amazing women that are going to be there, our female executives from Wake Tech Community College. We've got Dr. Gail Green, we've got Lori Clowers, we've got Dr. Rita German, Monica Jemperline, and Rebecca Neagle, and they're going to be our guest, and our guest moderator is Deborah Hope-Knoll from UNC-TV, and she's going to be leading this conversation where we get to glean from their wisdom, we get to know them a little bit better, we get to hear about their success story and how they got to be where they are in these positions of leadership. And it's our time to connect as women and to celebrate their success. So please join us tomorrow at Southern Campus at the Conference Center, again from 11 to 1. If not, join us on live stream. You'll be able to check us out wherever you are. And then on the following day, on Wednesday, we will be at the Western Campus, and we've got Sheila Ogle. We've got some amazing entrepreneurs, trailblazing women in entrepreneurship. Our very own Katie Gales is the one who head that up for us and invited these amazing women to come out and to speak to us. So for those women who are interested in entrepreneurship, maybe you have a little side hustle, maybe you have a dream to, you need to know how you get started. Despise not small beginnings. And they're going to tell us their story of how they got to be very successful entrepreneurs. So we've got these amazing women. Please come out, support, and that one also will be live stream. So join us on Eagle Stream. So we'll be having that. But today, we have Women in Healthcare here at the Perry Health Science Campus. And I just first of all need to thank the Women's History Month Committee. Everybody's not here, but we've got Lavita Joseph, we have Michelle Blackman, Katie Gales, Melody Henderson, Melanie Wiest. We have so many amazing people that were a part of the process of making these events happen. So I just want to thank them publicly for their contribution, their creative ideas. Christy Shields, the Director of Student Activities, the entire Student Activities team. None of this would be possible if it wasn't for them. So kudos to you guys. Teamwork really makes the dream work, and it has been a blessing for me to really be able to call on my amazing coworkers, and everybody's just stepped up to the plate to make this month and these events happen. So can we just give them a round of applause? Thank you so much. Now, I'm going to get out of your way, and I want to introduce our very own Dean Molly Curry, who has been a wonderful support. I love working with this woman and supporting the activities happening here at Perry Health Science Campus. And she is going to introduce our wonderful keynote speaker. So let's give her a hand.
Hey everybody, thanks so much for coming out. As Sandra was planning all this, we were having discussions about what she wanted to do in her vision. I said, I have the perfect person. Priscilla Ramseur befriended me when I first moved to Raleigh 5 years ago. One of the very first people I met when I moved to Raleigh. And she is such an inspiration. She's always encouraging, and she's been very supportive of me. She's also very supportive of our nursing program here at Wake Tech. So I couldn't think of any better person to come and talk with us today. Short bio, Priscilla serves as the Chief Nursing Officer at Duke Raleigh Hospital here in Raleigh. She previously served as the Associate Chief Nursing Officer of Clinical Operations, Nurse Educator, and Staff Nurse in Perioperative Services at Duke University Hospital. She was a staff nurse at Duke Regional Hospital. Priscilla obtained her BSN from North Carolina Central MSN Postmaster Certificate in Nursing Administration and DNP from Duke University in Durham. Priscilla is a TeamSTEPPS Master Trainer, a certified nurse executive, and OR nurse. She is a member with the North Carolina Nurses Association, AONE, NCONL, MBNA, and AORN. There's a lot of nursing acronyms for you right there. She serves on the Wake County Urban Ministries Board, Duke University School of Nursing DNP Executive Program Board, NCFN Board, Zeta Phi Beta Sorority, and a member at Union Baptist Church in Durham, where she is the Assistant Sunday School Superintendent and Deaconess. She is married and has 2 adult daughters and 1 grandson. Please welcome my friend and my colleague, Priscilla Ramseur.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here, and I want to again thank Molly, Dr. Curry, for inviting me. We've had many days and times together where she's encouraged me as well, so I want to thank her. First of all, I want to say congratulations to Wake Tech for celebrating Black History Month. Not Black History Month, but it is Women's History Month. So Black History Month was last month. I spoke to someone about that too. But thank you all for celebrating women's history. I think you all should really be proud of yourselves and taking time to do that. I am very honored that Molly actually asked me to do this, and I almost said no, but then I almost always say yes when she asked me, so that's because she's my friend and I always said yes. So I was like, okay, sure. I didn't know what I was getting into, but I said yes, but thank you. It is a privilege to be here because I know there's so many others that are worthy to be here. Today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my professional journey, and with that, I will share about some of the many lessons I've learned along the way. I am from Robeson County. I don't know if anybody else is in the room in Robeson County. If so, raise your hand. I would like to meet you. You are? Did you say yes? Oh, you know where it is. Well, if you know where it is, raise your hand too. We'll give you credit for that. But usually I don't find a lot of people who are from Robeson County. I'm actually from a small town called Shannon in North Carolina. It's a stoplight. It was a flashing stoplight when I grew up. I last checked to see what the census was, and it's about 200 people. So it's very small. There's no school there. We did have a post office. The post office is now closed. And so everything is in Red Springs, which is about 8 miles away. And I actually did all my education there from elementary school to high school. When we were small, when I grew up on a farm. My grandparents raised me. And so to go to Red Springs was huge for me because we call it going to town. And I don't know if anybody else can relate to that, but that's what happened for me. So I used to go to town. When I graduated from high school, at the time, my great-grandmother was very sick, and I had a very close family connection, and we took care of everybody. So my plans were actually to attend the community college in Robeson County. And that was my plan. I really didn't want to leave. So it's amazing that I've been actually left and still stayed away so long. But when I went to take my placement test, what happened was I did very well, and the counselor there, and shout out to any counselors here in the room, who pulled my grandmother and I in the room and said, you don't need to go here. You need to attend a university. And I was really disappointed because I was like, I don't want to leave. My uncle happened to be in town. He was living in New York, and my uncle knew everybody everywhere. Somehow he knew somebody at North Carolina Central. He made a call, and the next day I know, a couple days later, we were driving to North Carolina Central University, and I was in line to enroll for class. I don't know how I got accepted. All I know is it happened. I have to really give credit to him and my grandmother accepting his advice. And how we took care of it financially, I still don't know, but it happened. I consider it a blessing. So I have to really start with the fact that I had a very supportive family along the way. Because it could have been different. I know that some others don't have family support, so I am very thankful for that. When I got to Central, I chose nursing as my major. And the first couple years was a little tough. I was the one that cried every weekend when my family dropped me off because I didn't want to stay. But I had a great roommate. She was from DC, and I never forget it. Here it was, this little country girl, rooming with a girl from DC who taught me about life, and I'll leave it at that. It was interesting. So I got a little courage, and I started hanging out and meeting friends. And I remember joining this group. At the time, it was called Sigma Stars. Anybody know anything about fraternities and sororities? It was with the Phi Beta Sigma fraternity. They picked girls to be Sigma Stars, and I got to be a Sigma Star. And that was just when I started to blossom. And so around later, I actually joined a sorority, and that was Zeta Phi Beta sorority. And I actually had, it was 9 of us. We are known as the Notorious 9. That's our line name. And I think I know that some of them are on watching live stream. I want to just say thank them for everything they've done. We've been through a lot, but those are my sisters. We've been together for over 34 years now. And I can call on them, and we can call each other whatever we need. There's been good times, there have been bad times. There's times that we would literally fuss each other out and then get back together and love each other. Last year was tough for us. One of my sisters actually lost her husband. And that was hard. It was like he was my brother too. And I was on the phone when it happened, and I just ask you all to still pray for her and us as we go through this. And at the same time, where I was in school, in nursing, you did clinicals. Who's in the room that's a nursing major? Any nursing majors? And so you'll know about those clinical days, right? And you go to clinicals, and actually, at the time, we did clinicals from North Carolina Central, seemed like everywhere. But we had some great teachers, and I remember one of the professors saying, you all don't have a lot of money, you need a carpool. You need to find somebody to carpool with. So there was 4 of us who actually carpooled together. And so 3 of us, those 3 ladies are still my friends today. After graduation, 3 of us decided we would be roommates together, and we started working together at Durham County Hospital. That's what the name was years ago. It wasn't Duke Regional Hospital, it was Durham County Hospital. It was not part of Duke Health System. That's where I started my career. At the time, 3 nurses, there was 8-hour shifts, and we decided we could not live and work together. So one of us worked days, I worked evenings, and somebody worked nights. And that's how we lived together. So there was very few times all of us was in the room, in the house together, except to grocery shop. And that was interesting because all of us had our desires for food, but we were shopped together and we spent our money together. So to manage that with 3 ladies was a journey, but we learned a lot from each other. Our parents always gave us advice when they came to visit. So again, a loving support system, and I think that was one of the reasons why my nursing career became very successful, because we talked about what happened on our shifts, and we shared what we learned with each other. So while I was at Durham County Hospital, I actually had a desire to work in the operating room, and at the time, the OR manager said to me, we don't train new nurses in the OR here. And I was a little discouraged, and I thought, oh, how do I get into the OR? Because this is really, really where I want to be. And she said, go to Duke University Hospital, they would train you and come back in a year. So that's what I had planned to do. However, I went to Duke University Hospital as a new to the OR nurse, and I never went back. But that was because there were so many opportunities for me. I had amazing preceptors, and I want just to pause to talk about the importance of preceptors. You can make or break someone's career in nursing by being a good or not being a good preceptor. My preceptors were tough. Matter of fact, I actually had a fear of my preceptors, and I was not afraid of the surgeons because they were expected so much from me. And I remember having conversations before we would go into a room, and she would look at me directly in the eye and say, you know this, and you best not screw it up. And I thought, okay, I'm not gonna make her mad at me. So I learned how to do every case in that operating room, every trauma. I got to experience things I thought I would never do before, but that was because, again, amazing preceptors. Matter of fact, today, one of my preceptors is still my very best friend. And she just retired after 47 years of service at Duke University Hospital. And I can still call her. Actually, on Saturday, she called me and she said, I want to just tell you I'm proud of you. You're the little quiet girl that showed up at Duke University Hospital OR, and I always had my lunch. I never went to the cafeteria because my grandmother told me, don't waste your money on buying anybody else's food. So that's what I did. I always took my lunch. It wasn't until later in life that I actually went to the cafeteria. But she said, you will bring your lunch, and I had glasses, and I remember one day, for some reason, my glasses splashed, and she looked at me right before I was scrubbed and gowned, and she said, can you see? And I said, yeah, I can see. I said, why? She said, you got Kool-Aid on your glasses. And she took them off, cleaned them, and put them back on me. So that's the friendship that was bonded back then. And shortly after that, we just kept going. Shortly after being in the operating room, I ended up going to the OR being an OR educator. And for some reason, I said I want that job. And I went to the director and said, when the person left the position, I would like to apply for the OR educator. I don't know why I asked that question. Sometimes one of those things, be careful what you ask for, but my parents and my grandparents and the community at home in Shannon and Robeson County always said, shoot for the stars. So I didn't know any better. So I did. I went and applied, and she said, you don't know anything. You haven't been here a year yet. I said, okay, I understand. However, a few months later, she came to me, she said, do you still want that job? And I said, yes, ma'am, I do. I had no clue what I was getting into. I knew I had to do the same thing as the OR educator did for me, and at the time, it wasn't as much technology and, demonstrations. She actually put us in a room. I remember it was 5th floor at Duke South Hospital. It was in the top level. It was a slanted attic floor because the ceiling touched my head. So you just imagine how low the ceiling was, okay? Because if I stood up, I bumped my head. And I thought, well, I could do that. So, but she said when I took the job, we want more. And I thought, oh, okay. So I literally was not only assigned for teaching new ORs, I had to plan all the educational sessions for the operating room on Wednesday mornings. I was also assigned to teach new residents and PA students. And I literally would go home at night and read. And I'm not advancing my slide because I had a great slide of Central and when I became a sorority, when I went to regional. But it was what I wanted to do. But when I would literally go home and read at night and read my lessons about if I'm going to go teach a session on, say, sterile technique, I wanted to make sure I just didn't do it by memory and I went through every detail. So I went home at night. So even when I had finished school, I was still studying. And I say this because anybody going into healthcare, there's always changes. You're going to always have to learn things. You always have to decide what's next for you. We used to call it our OR the cutting edge OR. Well, every OR is cutting edge because there's always new technology. Everywhere you work in healthcare is cutting edge. There's always things that are new. So know that that is going to happen. What happened also and additionally when I was at the education department was there was a couple of friends. I was getting ready I had to learn how to teach everything that I never taught before. I had to learn ACLS, I had to learn PALS. At the time they called it PIP for personal interventions for protection of interventional treatment. So in case you were caring for a psychiatric patient, I had to teach all those things, and I was an OR nurse. I had to learn how to do EKG rhythms. Any course that they put inside me, I had to learn how to teach it. So one day I was getting ready to do a course, and two ladies said to me, "You're very quiet. Come in," and she actually took us into an auditorium just about like this, and she said, "We're going to rehearse." And so I had presented, when my voice tone was not loud enough, she said, "Speak up. We can't hear you." And then they gave me so much feedback. She said, "Your voice tone is boring." And I said, oh, okay. So she said, learn how to speak with a different tone and use inflections and know how to give eye contact and make sure you engage the audience. So that was my first time really learning how to be a presenter. And that stuck with me because of two people, and they were not assigned to do it. At least I thought they were not. And actually I was talking to one of them about 3 years ago about this story. She says, Priscilla, we did that for everybody. I said, oh, it wasn't just for me? And she said, no, it wasn't just for you because everyone was a reflection of the team. So realize that we are always responsible for the entire team. The one thing you may hear a lot is you are as strong as your weakest link. So if anybody on the team is not strong, the entire team is not strong. So remember that. In addition, I had a great roommate at the time, and she would always encourage me because I would go in and say, I don't want to teach that course. She said, toughen up, little girl, you're going to teach this course. And eventually she was my friend. Actually, she helped me with my children because I was married and I was trying to figure out how to do things. And back then, there was not a lot of rules about what we did in the hospital. For example, if it was a snow day, everybody brought their children to school. Brought their children to the hospital. And not to the hospital, but to the education department. We had daycare back then. We can't do that today. But she would help with my children and help me with other things I had to do. And then shortly after that, I was told that it was an expectation that I get my master's. And it was very convenient. Actually, we were in one building. The Duke School of Nursing was right across the bridge. Just the right across. She said, walk over there and get started. And I did. And so I actually had partners with me in school, and it worked out very well. And when I decided to move forward with my major, I moved forward with a focus on nursing education and nursing administration. And at that time, I decided I want to move out of education and go into nursing leadership. And as I got ready to move from that position, my roommate at the time, my office mate at the time was Norris Burton. And Norris gave me this, a framed print of Still I Rise. And that stuck with me. I proudly put that up in my office, but there was tough days where I would have to read that to myself and give myself confidence. And there's a couple pieces I wanted to just read to you. Just like the moons and like the suns, with the certainty of tides, just like the hopes, springing high, still I rise. The last verse says, leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, and I rise. And that really speaks to everyone, no matter where you come from. There is a journey for you out there, and you have to decide what it is, and you really have to take time to dedicate yourselves to moving forward. So that was one thing that really was with me. So I was appointed the nurse manager at the Eye Center. And this is actually one of the newer pictures. I couldn't find an old picture of the Wadsworth building where I worked at. But in the Eye Center, I was the manager. I had to learn how to manage a lot of tough things. At the time, I reported to a lady who really coached me and gave me a lot of crucial feedback. When I did well, she would let me know. And when I didn't, she would let me know. I want to let you realize there's importance in giving feedback. And I had to learn how to receive it. Feedback is a gift. And I think where I see that where people may struggle sometimes is when they're not willing to accept feedback. There's always going to be feedback, and what do you glean from it, and how do you move from that? So learn the importance of giving feedback. I actually had to do my first termination there. And that was hard. And I remember working with my manager about what was going on. And she said, stick with the facts. And you're human, so yes, it does hurt. But in reality, this person is not following the policies and the procedures, and you're going to have to manage that. So I said, are you gonna be with me when I do this? And she said, no. And I said, okay. So I literally went home, I practiced on my husband. And said, he's like, this is pretending, right? I said, yes. But I had to make that tough decision. And I realized at that time, people will appreciate what you do or they may not. And that's when I realized that it was hard being a leader. And I had to walk that path along. And actually at the time, the department was growing. We were growing so fast. We ended up actually having to add more ORs and redesign our PACU. And that was my first construction project in a hospital. And I learned to be friends with the architects. And I actually still get Christmas cards from him today because we had such a great time together. But he taught me so much. And I was like, what does it mean with this little design? You know, if you look at floor plans and need to understand what those are. So that was my first time with that. And at the same time, shortly after I got started there, the hospital president, his name was Kevin Sowers, called me one day and he said, Priscilla, I want you to open up a transitional care unit. And we're gonna start it over in Duke North, but you'll move it over to the Eye Center later. He said, what do you need? And I said, everything. I have nothing. I don't know, you know, I said, I need people to work. And I said, how about we go look at the unit, because I didn't really know which unit he was talking about. So we walked over, looked at the unit. It was a vacant unit, completely vacant. No beds, no equipment, no computers. And he said, now think about this and tell me what you think your need. Because at the time, he remembered my first job was working at Durham County Hospital, and which was a surgical unit. And he said, what did you have then? So I was able to list what I needed, and then we talked about developing the nurse to patient ratios, and he said, I'll get you whatever you need, you just tell me. So I learned really fast that I may not know what I need, but I went to another inpatient manager and said, this is my list, is it right? And she said, nope. And she went through it with me and added, and so from that, I was able to open that unit. And I actually had to learn how to manage an OR, a PACU. At the same time, I had a pre-op screening unit, and now an inpatient unit. And it was quite challenging. I mean, there was things I had to manage because I hadn't worked. Remember, I was the evening shift person. And now I was working day shift, but I didn't ever have to manage a night shift. So I had to learn it to go in and manage and learn people and start relationships with individuals on night shift. And one of the greatest advice someone gave to me was people would do, they don't do what you expect them to do, they do what you inspect. And I said to her, what do you mean by that? She said, if you don't round, they're not gonna do what you ask them to do because they don't think you care. So I started rounding. I did not have a schedule. I had to learn how to come in the back door because I knew there were some issues on something on the unit, so I would come in the front way one day, the back hall the next day, and they started watching. So they started to learn that I would come in any kind of way, but to learn what was going on. They were an amazing team. We eventually had to move to the Eye Center and open up the unit there. And at the time, I was told, you're gonna open this unit and close this unit in 2 years. And I didn't think that would be so hard until it became time to close the unit and had to work and make sure everyone had a job. And everyone did, except people who were in corrective action. And that was hard, but I also had already met with all those individuals and said, this is where you are. Because it's truly my belief that when a manager sits down with any employee, it should not be a surprise to that employee where they are. I can do a mid-year and an end-of-year evaluation usually in 15 to 30 minutes today because they already know. I'm meeting with you monthly, we're having the conversations. Or if you're not following the policies and procedures, you already know that. It should not be a surprise at evaluation time. And so, shortly after that, because of my expanded growth, my title changed from nurse manager to clinical operations director. because of the growth that we had at the eye center. And so I was there for about 14 years. But right before that, the supervisor or the manager that I reported to transitioned. It was 2007, and I was getting bored, a little bored. And I know that doesn't sound quite right, but I was getting bored. And so I thought I would apply for the, at the time it was Associate Operations Officer, and at the time we call it AOO. I applied for that position, and I distinctly remember the date and the time that Kevin called me, and he said, "Priscilla, I'm not going to give you that job." And I said, "I'm in the cafeteria." I start buying lunch then. I was in the cafeteria, and he said, "Are you a place you want to talk?" And I said, "No, tell me now." He said, "Sounds like you're in a busy place." And I said, "Kevin, I'm going to be ready to accept whatever you tell me." He said, "You're too nice. I'm not going to give you the job." And I thought managers had to be nice. So what was going on? He said, "You will understand later why I did not give you the job." And he said, "And I have to leave it at that." And I thought, because people said, "You're not getting the job, and you know why?" And I said, "Well, he told me I was too nice." It just didn't make a lot of sense, right? And so I decided at that time, if I'm too nice, I need to find out what else I'm going to do. So that's when I decided to take the journey and do the postmaster certificate. I was like, I'm bored, I might as well just channel all my energy in going back to school. So I did my postmaster's certificate in nursing administration again. And that really helped me, and it helped me learn how to be a little bit tougher. And shortly after that, I got a call again from Kevin. It was about maybe 6 months later, and he said, "I heard you're in school." And I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, I want you to come over to Duke North. The director's leaving, and I want you to be the interim clinical operations director for the Duke North OR." So I was going to moving from managing 6 ORs, a daily schedule, maybe about 30 cases, to Duke North OR, which is 35 ORs. And I said, "Okay, I'm coming." Because there was this saying that someone said to me, when you get the call, the answer is always yes. So I went over, transitioned into being the interim OR manager. And shortly after that, I realized what Kevin was talking about. Kevin shared with me that perioperative services at Duke University Hospital was going through a restructure. Has anyone been through a restructure and know what that means? So that meant that everybody in their position in leadership was officially laid off. I was safe because I was not official, I was interim. So I was the only person at that time in leadership was not laid off. But if I had accepted that position as the AOO, I would have had to lay off my own friends that I had to work with so long. And I have to appreciate the fact that he knew that I was too nice to do that. It hurt at first, but I realized that I had to trust him and understand why. And I had to live with that. So after that, going through the restructure, I did apply for another job, and I then became the administrative director for not only the OR, but also the PACU, which at that time had about 40 bays, so 35 ORs, and at the same time, we were going through a construction project again. So we were adding 4 new cardiac ORs. We were adding, doubling the size of the PACU from 35 bays to 70 bays. And at the same time, he said, I was told, you're going to manage sterile processing as well. From a nursing perspective, that's your scope. And I said, yes, sir. And so what I didn't know, I learned, and I learned from experts. And that meant I went in and worked beside people. So I went into sterile processing, even though I knew a little bit about sterile processing, I learned it as if I had to work there. PACU, I wasn't really a PACU nurse, I was an OR nurse, and I thought, I'm not gonna get this, but then someone said, well, you just had to come work with us, Miss Priscilla, and I did. And I learned from the team that was doing the work because they knew it better than I did, so that when things go wrong and they called me in the middle of the night, I knew where to go or who to go to really follow up and address things. So that was where I kind of started that journey of moving up the ladder. I think what was really tough was actually I had to work with a whole different set of people besides my eye center folks. And I say that because when you start a journey in leadership, you build relationships. And so even though, and then actually, this is the team where about 20 or 30% were the same team members that started with me when I was a new to the OR nurse. And some of them actually taught me. So now I'm coming back as an admin director. And the one thing my grandmother always told me, you always respect people, no matter what. So I will always say, sir, yes ma'am, thank you. And someone said, why are you saying that? I said, because you don't have to do it. And I realized that as quick as I got where I was, it wouldn't take me long to go back where I was before. And my grandmother and I would have long conversations about what was going on, and she would just say to me, just be respectful, be kind, and treat people the way you want to be treated. So that was really my mantra. That was what I grounded myself on. So after being there at the operating room, then shortly after I got a call from the chief nurse who said to me, I'm going to appoint you as the associate chief nursing officer. And I said no. And I was like, oh, I'm supposed to say yes. And I said, well, may I think about it for a while? And I said, because I don't know how others will feel about this, because the position's not posted, no one's applying for it, and I don't think that's gonna be fair. And she said, you're the only person in this hospital who's qualified for this position. And I had to go home and really deal with that at that time. And this was shortly after I lost my mom. So it was hard. It was really hard because there were some life challenges that me and my siblings were working on. And I told her, I said, I don't know if I'm ready. And I said, I need to take care of family business. And she said, I'll give you time to take care of that. So we got everything taken care of. And one day she said, you never called me back. And I said, we're not quite finished yet, but I think we will be by the end of the month. So once everything was taken care of, she said, come by the office. And I said, tell me what I'm going to do. And she said, you will have full responsibility for all the ORs at Duke Hospital. That means Eye Center, the Duke North, which is the 35 ORs, but at that time we were up to 39. And at the time, the Ambulatory Surgery Center, the PACUs, pre-op screening, and sterile processing. I said, okay. And I said, I have to just take this in for a moment. And she looked at me. This is when I realized someone had more confidence in me than I had in myself. And I said, I don't know that I can, and I'm afraid that I'm going to fail. And she said, you can. And she said, and you will. And that was her words. She said to me, failing is part of the journey. You're going to make some mistakes, and you're going to learn from that. So I want to really emphasize that fail is what we call the first attempt in learning. And it's okay, and I learned to say, you know, if you don't get it right, what did you learn from it? And how do you move forward from that? And no really should be, what's the next opportunity that you're going to take? And we'll talk about later what I learned that you should say no and when you should say yes. But realize that effort never dies. That's what the end is never giving up. And there's a song that we'll play at the end to talk about that. And you have to love yourself. You got to realize the importance of who you are. And I think that's when I really realized that I don't really have the confidence. I was a timid person. I was still quite introvert. I would go and work my butt off. I would do whatever anybody asked me to do, and I would get it done. That meant if I had 5 o'clock a.m. meetings, and sometimes literally to 5 p.m. meetings to get the work done, that's what I did. And so I learned to just work hard, have relationships with individuals, and really understand where people are coming from. Remember, I was working with surgeons. I mean, anybody work with surgeons before? Okay. And so someone would say, and actually things were going on, and I remember one day, Marianne Freaks is the chief nurse, but, and she would say, I need for you to do this. I was like, you want me to go talk to who? And she said, yes, and I will have to get the courage to go in. And there's a particular surgeon, Kevin told me, I won't name his name, but he said, that's gonna be your best friend. And I said, okay. So I went to this surgeon one day and I said, hi, Dr. So-and-so, I need to talk to you about whatever we need to talk about. He said, you can talk to me between cases. Well, he thought I wouldn't track his cases, but we could watch those on the computer. I called that chart, the circulating nurse, I said, when you hit close, the first stitch, give me a call. And literally, when she said, we're closing, I stood beside the door. And so I would stand beside that door, and when he walked out, I said, hey, Dr. So-and-so, I'm walking you to your office. And he said, you going where? I said, I'm going wherever you're going. And I think he literally made me walk 2 miles a day just to see if I would burn out. I was about 20 pounds lighter then. But, and so finally we started talking, we have a relationship. We started understanding. And he would tell me where his struggles were, and I was able to say to him, you know, I understand yesterday you said so-and-so to so-and-so, and that was not nice. He said, well, let me tell you why I said it. So we started having conversations and understanding what was going on. And eventually I said, okay, so we didn't get that part right. I'll commit to you that from a nursing perspective, we'll do this. I need an expectation, I expect from a physician perspective, you'll do this. And he did. He started getting better. And so I said, okay, so we're making progress. And I actually worked with a great administration team that, as a nurse leader, I was managing nursing. We had a physician leader who managed the surgeons. We had an anesthesia leader who managed anesthesia, and a person from administration. We did incredible things. And then at that point, what happened was the vice president decided that she was going to move closer to her mom because she had lost her father. And I felt like, oh, I don't think I can stay here. But at the same time, I thought, oh, maybe she said, you should apply for my job. And I said, oh, let me think about it. So she was in Texas, and we literally would talk 3 to 4 times a week, even though she was in Texas, because we were so close. And it was hard for a while for me to realize I was going to have to leave without her. And when they asked would I like to be interim VP, and I thought, I'll help do the work, but I don't think I'm ready. Do you see my pattern? I kept saying, I'm not ready. So I thought, okay, maybe I will go ahead and do this. But by that time, things had to move on, and someone else was appointed. And so I had to work with that person, who was great as well. That person is now the president at UVA. However, with Marianne support and encouragement, and it was mid-year time, and I remember her saying to me, Priscilla, there's a chief nursing position coming open at Duke Raleigh Hospital. You should apply for it. What did I say? I'm not ready. And I thought, I'll just keep this to myself. And so one day, we were having a family discussion. It was my husband, my youngest daughter at the time. We were having a conversation. And I shared, I said, you know, I think I want to apply for the VP position, but Marianne has actually encouraged me to apply for the CNO position. My husband's very supportive. He said, whatever you want. And I said, okay, all right. But my youngest daughter looked at me, and she told me words that really kind of pierced my heart. She says, Mommy, you're a hypocrite. And I said, what? She said, you always has encouraged me to push hard, go past my comfort zone, and never be afraid. And you are afraid. And I said, I'm not ready. She said, how do you know you're not ready? I live in Durham. And I said, that traffic, that drive to Raleigh is awful. She says, how do you know? And I said, I don't know. She said, well, have you ever drove over there at the time you were reporting to work? Take the drive. She was on spring break, and I said, hey, let's get up the next morning. We'll drive over to Raleigh, and we'll go out and have a nice breakfast. She says, I'm not going with you. And I said, you're not? She said, you go to work every day, I wouldn't be going with you. She said, drive over there. So the next morning, I actually decided I was on vacation. I got up, left home, drove over to Raleigh, and I got here so fast. And I thought, I sat in that parking lot. I hope nobody knows I was sitting. It's PG2, and I sat there for a while. I was like, okay. And I thought, well, let's go walk in the hospital door and see what it feels like. I hadn't applied for this job yet. So I walked in the door, and people were very nice, and they were kind. And I thought, wow, I think I like it here. So I literally went back home, and I applied for both jobs on the same day. And I remember the AO for us at that time, I told her, she said, you're going to have a lot of interviews, you know that, don't you? And I said, yeah. I said, but I think I'm willing. She says, why are you applying for both? I said, I'm not really sure where I need to be, and I know the interviews will help me decide. And so I said that I will find out as I take this journey. Well, for the CNO job, as well as the VP job, we used the hospital, both health systems, the hospitals were using a recruitment firm. And they were using the same one. And they met with me, and they went over every detail of my life, even from the time I was in Shannon, North Carolina. And I thought, what kind of job am I getting? I'm not going to apply for the President of the United States. I'm going to be a CNO. I think, I'm not sure, but she really prepared me for the job, the interview. I had over 60 interviews in about a month's period of time. And I would ask people when I was going, pray for me tomorrow, I've got an interview. And someone finally said to me, what are you applying for? That's what I want to know. And I told her, I said, I'm applying for the VP as well as the CNO. She said, well, hopefully you'll get one of those jobs. And my friend in Texas, I called her for advice, and she said, what you need to do is to talk to one of the surgeons, and he will kind of give you an insight in which way the hospital is going regarding the VP. And he did. He frankly told me, you're not going to get the job. He says, you're not ready yet. He says, I want you to stick around here because you're really good. And I said, well, actually, I'm also applying for another job as a CNO at Raleigh. He said, you're not going to like it there. They're not like us. And I said, I'm going to have to take the chance. And that's when I started getting more courage and thought, if I'm going to take this journey, I need to have the confidence and go through it. So I went through all the interviews, and that was in the springtime. And at the same time, Duke University Hospital was building a new hospital tower. We're adding 18 more ORs and about 40 new PACU bays, a huge waiting room space, and I was responsible for all that. In addition, we were going live on what we call EPIC, which is electronic medical record. And I said to Kevin Sowers one day, I just don't know who thought about doing both of these at the same time. He said, and you're applying for 2 jobs on top of this. I said, yeah, I am. And I just had to really have a lot of confidence and relationships. I spent a lot of time with friends to say, you know, I'm getting ready to go on this interview tomorrow with so-and-so. What do you think I should be prepared for? My friends encouraged me. There wasn't not one interview that I didn't feel like I didn't do well on. Matter of fact, someone came and said, you deserve the VP job, but you're not going to get it. There's already someone in line for that position. And it was interesting because I went to a friend of mine and said to him, I'm applying for the VP position. He was already a VP, and I said, I want some advice for you. So 2 days later, he came in my office and he said, I need to talk to you. I said, oh, that was really fast. We just talked about having a conversation. for me to give you advice. I was gonna come to your office. You didn't have to come to me. And he always called me Buddy. He said, Buddy, I need to tell you something. And I said, what? And he says, I'm applying for that job. And I thought, he's gonna get the job. And he did. And I was fine with that because I understood. And at the same time, I didn't know if I would get either job. So I started losing confidence again. And my interview process here was just where Raleigh alone was 32 interviews. And I thought, I don't know. So I remember one day I got the call and was told I wasn't getting the job. And I thought, do I pray for it? Do I let it go? What do I do? And I did. I went up for prayer in church one day. And I said to my pastor, I said, I'm asking for prayer today because there's a job I really want. And he looked at me, he said, you sure you want it? And I was like, does he know my story? And I said, yes, I do. So he said, I'll pray for you if you're sure you want the job. That was Sunday. On Monday, I got a call for next round interviews. And by the end of the week, the job was offered to me. And that was in July. And remember, Duke University Hospital was going through Epic. We're moving into a new tower. And when I went to the VP at the time and said, I've accepted this position, she said to me, you need to find who's gonna replace you before you leave. And I said, really? And she says, yes. And people kind of who knows that when I say really, I mean, well, really. And she said, really? And I said, okay. So I started asking people that I thought would be great. Would you consider being interim when I leave? I had so many no's. And finally, the one person I thought, I got one more chance. Maybe she'll take it. And she said, I'll take it, only if you agree to mentor me. And I said, okay, because I was ready to take this position. And I thought, it can't be that hard, right? But I also had to do a complete transition. So every file in my office, we met, we went through everything so that she knew where everything was, with only the need for her to call me to go over things as needed. And it wasn't too bad, but I had to learn a lot leaving Duke University Hospital to Duke Raleigh. But you know what? It's the best thing that's ever happened to me. It was hard for me to leave Duke University Hospital because I was there for 25 years. And someone said to me, you will realize how strong you are when you walk away. And I thought, I hope so. And I had to start making some tough decisions there. We were going through what we call transforming our future. And when I talk about transforming our future, we were moving things around and I was delivering tough messages again. I was working with a whole new set of surgeons that I had to develop relationships with and staff, leaders, and really make a lot of decisions on how we move forward. But it worked out pretty well. And I'm very happy about the fact that I'm at Duke Raleigh Hospital. After I got there, I also had to think about, Mary Ann's called me one day. She says, I want you to do this fellowship program, this nurse executive fellowship program. I said, well, what does it require? She said, here's the application, fill it back, give it to me by tomorrow. And I looked at her and I said, Mary Ann, it's very long. I don't think I'm going to make this. She says, it's like Tuesday. She said, I'll give you to Friday. So I did. I completed the application, and it was an initial cohort with General Electric and a company called Health Management Academy, where they were starting their first cohort of nurse executives from across the country. And there was 12 of us, and I happened to be one of them. That really helped level set where I needed to go because of the commitment the organization gave me. So as I was in there, in the program, we all were talking about the cohort from the fellowship program, who's going back to school to get their doctorate? And I was like, not me. And I said, I don't think I can do it. I'm at a new hospital, doing this. And then one day, Mary Ann looked at me and she said, shortly after, I want you to consider going back to school. And what did I say? I said, yes. And she said, we will support you. And I had amazing support. Some of my colleagues gave me books. I never bought one, except for 2 books while I was in my DNP program. Any project I needed help with, somebody was there to help me. So I had amazing support. So I graduated from the DNP program in 2016. So I tell you all this because my journey is based on having a support system, having great advice, having a lot of support, family and friends. And with that, yes, I worked hard to the point, sometimes I didn't quite have the best work-life balance, but I know how to have it now. I know I need to spend time with my family, so I would tell you, as you're on your journey, especially you all starting your careers or very new in your career, make sure you know that your family knows you're there. My youngest daughter, I told people, she did every activity in the world because she wanted to. Me and my husband agreed to do that. My oldest daughter was completely opposite. We couldn't get her to do much of anything. So we thought, well, we'll leverage her and do this with her. But I remember someone saying when she went to college, what are you going to do? And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. And I learned to find me. I had to learn that what was important to me and what was my purpose. And my purpose was really leading and helping other people lead. One of the journeys that was very important to me when I did my doctoral program was to develop a leadership development program for nurses, which we're continuing to do at the health system. We started with 41 people, and now we have 84, and I was able to get that published in January. And so that was just the beginning of knowing what I needed to do. But I love my job, and I love the people I work with, and I love the ability to see people grow. And as I will just reinforce what my grandmother told me is always be kind and be respectful and treat people the way you want them to treat you. So that's been my journey. There's a song I want to play. This is Duke School of Nursing. Actually, over here, and I don't know if there's a port on here. So, but this two buildings here were added after I graduated from my master's program, and I did my postmaster's and doctorate program in the new buildings. I just wanted to share about sacrifice. This is the Duke Medical Pavilion. We did cutting edge technology that we had to learn how to do an intraoperative MRI in a room. And that's what that looks like. And I thought that was one of the toughest things I had to do, but yet was one of the most innovative things we had to do. And this is just to say that this is Steve Jobs, and I love this quote. Work is going to take a lot of your life, but the only way to do great work is to love what you do. And it's important that you love what you do. I get excited when I meet with my team members and they tell me, I met with two today, and they both said, I love my job. And I get great satisfaction when people do that, say that. This is Duke Raleigh Hospital. And this quote is one of the quotes, it's a poem by Marianne Williamson. It's called Our Deepest Fear. I don't know if you all have read it or seen it before, but this relates to me and where I was in my journey. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frighten us. We ask ourselves, what am I to be? Brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing a small part does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightening about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine, as children do. We are born to make manifest of the glory of God that is within us. It is not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we are, let our own light shine. We unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Thank you, and we're gonna play this song, and I will ask you to just read the words, because this is my favorite song.
Dream out loud and walk
How's that? Let's give her a hand. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Priscilla Ramseur. Thank you so much for that inspiration to not give up. We want to give an opportunity for us to have a little Q&A. You had so many wonderful nuggets that you gave for us today. And one of the ones that things that really stuck with me is that a lot of times we see people that are very successful and we just assume that they're so confident that just, that's how they got there. They're so confident. And I love your transparency, your honesty to say, I was doubting myself. So when we think about our national theme, nevertheless she persists, for Women's History Month, it sounded to me like one of the things that you had to persist through was your own confidence, pushing yourselves, and so many times we get in our own way. There are challenges that are external, but sometimes the problem is us. But we're so grateful and thankful to God that there's so many wonderful people that can see more in ourselves than we see ourselves. You know what I mean? See more in us than we see in ourselves. And it sounded like you had this, such a wonderful team of people that could see that light that was shining in you and encouraged you to keep going until you found that confidence. So we're so grateful that you made it through and that this is only the beginning, because there'll be somebody else around the corner to say, you know what you should do? You should be the president. And you'll say, I don't think I can. Exactly. So we want to give an opportunity for you to ask some questions, especially for all of our, our students and our faculty. Again, thank you so much for being here. If you have any questions for Dr. Ramseur, now's the time. We welcome that. We have some time on the clock. Anybody, anything burning on your heart? Any specific questions you want to ask? Oh, don't be shy. It's just us girls. Come on now. You know what I love that there's one back there? One guy, oh, one guy, I'm sorry, honey, thank you, we appreciate you. I love also, if you could talk a little bit about, you keep such a busy schedule and these huge titles and things that you have to do. Talk about the work-life balance and how you learned how to manage that.
It was not easy. I will tell you what really opened my eyes was after my mom passed, I did not take care of myself. I really stressed myself out, but I kept working. And actually, it was the same day that my husband's father died, within a month that I lost my mom. And the doctor's office called and said, your A1C is so high, you need to come in today. And I said, I can't, my father-in-law just died. And my doctor keeps it real. She said, either you come or you find another doctor. So I made my way to the doctor's office. And we talked about where I was personally. And she said, you're gonna have to take care of yourself or you're gonna kill yourself. And I said, she says, I can put you on medications. I said, I promise you I don't want to take the pills. And I would do it with weight, exercising and diet. And I did very well for a long time. And that was when I was still at Duke University Hospital. Came to Raleigh, kind of started doing the same thing again. Remember, I was doing the fellowship, I was working on my doctorate, and I started on this same journey. So she says, we're gonna have the same conversation we had in 2009. And this was just a few years ago. And this time she said, you are being put on medications. I was so angry at myself but a friend of mine said, who did it? Because my friends are real. They keep it real. They're very honest with me. And she said, I'll walk with you. I'll exercise with you. I'll do whatever you want to do. And so that was my accountability partner. But also, I was talking to Marianne about it, and she said, Priscilla, there's only one you. You can't do it all. You need to learn how to delegate, and you got to teach people in case you don't come back tomorrow. So the way I work with my team now is they know just about everything. I used to have this saying, which someone told me to change, was, in case I get ran over by a Mack truck tonight, I need to tell you this. And so someone said, stop saying that. Just say, if you win the lottery tonight and don't come back to work tomorrow, this is what you need to know. So my saying is, if I win the lottery tonight, you need to know this. So that's what I share with my team. And I think the best thing I can do is for my team is prepare them, because I'm not going to be there one day. And I don't know if any of you all have ever experienced someone passing suddenly on your team, because it has happened to us, where you got to be able to pick up the pieces, because in healthcare, you don't close the hospital down. And so I tell my managers and my directors the same thing. Who knows what you're doing? What's the plan? And we have ways of being more transparent about what we do. At the same time, I got some awesome friends. My sorority sisters, we meet quite often. We have a great time. I have another group we call Exhale Divas. We hang out and we do stuff. I got my church friends, and I got my family, my sisters and my brothers, and we all get together and we just have time. And then just my husband. I got to realize and remember I'm a wife. And I have time for my husband when he asks for time. So there's been times, and the way my job actually got to surprise me was they knew I would go with my husband whenever he asked me to go, just about. So when I graduated from my DNP program, my husband said, I need for you to be home by such time, we're going on a date. And I was like, it's a weeknight. Why are we going on a date on a weeknight? He said, just come home. So I did. And we drove to Raleigh. I said, why are we going out in Raleigh? Why couldn't we go out in Durham? Well, that was when we got to the restaurant, and I was like, why do we have to come here? And he finally said, will you just hush? And I did, and I walked in, and everybody on the executive leadership team was there to surprise me. But they knew the secret sauce was to get him to have me come. So it's learning how to have time and realizing the value of family and friends. I say this because when they're gone, they're gone. And if you don't have time for them, they'll never forget that. And so I don't want to live a life full of regrets. actually 2018, January, I called friends I had not talked to in a long time. And I had a list of things I said I were gonna do. And I made sure I did most of those things. I got a few more things to check off, but I don't wanna have 2018 as a year of regret. So that's why I balance it out.
That's beautiful. Is this on? Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me, period?
Yes.
Any questions came up as she was talking? Anyone? If you would, I would love for you to just talk really quickly about what advice you would give to our students. Of course, the students at the health science campus, they are, really working hard to get into our rigorous programs, whether it's nursing or dental, whatever it is. And, we find them really stressing, especially when it comes to work-life balance, because, there's so much riding at stake, and you know what that's like. So what advice could you give to our students as they are pursuing their goal of just getting into one of our programs?
So it goes back to one of the quotes I shared, anything worth having takes sacrifice. My line sister today, one I was a roommate with, they would always go out to party. I was the one that never went. I would say very seldom time. Matter of fact, not too long ago, she said, I guess staying and studying instead of going to the club paid off for you. That was because I knew my family made a big sacrifice for me to be in school, and I didn't want to waste their time and money. It really hurts my heart when I hear families or some of my friends say their child went to school and they were not successful because they really party their way, especially when someone says my child has a GPA of a 1 point something, and you wonder what did they do. But I think it's because you got to realize to get to the next step, you got to sacrifice. And it is tough. It is tough in school. I remember those days of studying, and I remember studying at the time the NCLEX was paper and pencil. So we went in this room and took this test. It's not like it is today where you take your exam online and then you get your results in a few days. I think we waited for almost 6 weeks. So, but realize if you just take the time, study, and use your resources. There will be times where you may not get it. And I remember in DNP school, when I was in my DNP program, YouTube was a beautiful thing. I couldn't find the answer, wasn't getting it, I would Google it on YouTube or something would pop up, and I watched it. Use your resources. Go, and when my instructor said, call me, I started calling them, and they would answer. And I remember it was a Sunday, and I emailed thinking, oh, I'll hear from them tomorrow. And she responded immediately. And I think sometimes you don't reach out because you think you already know the answer. Don't assume. Ask and use your resources. I would say most people who are doing that are successful is because they've used every resource that they can. Molly knows, I call her a lot of times, and she offered to help me when I was in school because I was like, I don't know about this and that. She says, let me know, and I'm here to help you. And sometimes she just listened because I needed a listening ear of what I was going through. And so find someone that you can talk to and don't bottle everything in. I think that's how people really stress themselves out. They don't find a good support system. And I realize that some people may be in a new town, and but make friends and learn who you can support and who can support you.